Hey everyone, welcome back to L2 Games, and here we are with episode 5 of the L2 Games Podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my good friend Kyle, and once again, we're talking Marvel's Avengers.
Oh boy, here we go. More Avengers stuff. Will it be good?
Yeah,
Will it be bad?
we'll see. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is kind of devolved into the Avengers podcast at this point.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we'll have room for more topics in the future, but I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on with this game in the last few weeks. So, for anyone who's been keeping up with it, our last podcast episode, we covered the paid consumable controversy with this game. And I did a follow up video on that talking about Crystal Dynamics' response on the Play Avengers subreddit, where essentially they didn't acknowledge the paid consumables themselves, but rather the toxicity of community response. And in my opinion, that was kind of a poor decision on their part, just because when you're addressing something like that, you need to address the root of the controversy, not just the community reaction to it. And
Yeah.
that obviously soured a lot of people.
Yeah. It's like that meme from The Simpsons. It's like, did I make a poor decision for this game? No, it's the fans who are wrong.
Yeah, and in a live service or games as a service game, whatever you want to use, whatever term you want to use to describe it,
Mhm.
the community is the lifeblood of your game. You can't afford to be chastising them at a point where they've been starved for new content for a while and are asking about things that they haven't been given an update on, like the cosmetic rework, changes to the gear system, everything like that. And so, in my opinion, that was another big misstep. And a lot of people in the comment section on our channel were saying things like, how can it be pay to win? It's a stupid thing to get upset about. And look, regardless of where you fall on the whether or not it's pay to win debate, I think the bigger issue was how it was implemented, as opposed to the fact of the XP boosters. The XP booster in and of itself wasn't the problem. It was how they implemented it in light of the fact that they nerfed XP and then failed to address it for 26 days afterwards.
Is that really how long it was between the implementation and this new response?
Yep, 26
Wow.
days. So, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, and I was hoping to get around to this earlier in the week when it was still a little more fresh. Obviously, some people have already covered this, but Crystal Dynamics issued an official response directly to the paid consumables rather than just addressing the response to them. So, I'll read that out for you here. So, it says, we have decided that by the end of today we will remove Heroes, Catalysts, and Fragment Extractors for purchase. We apologize for not responding sooner to your concerns about the addition of paid consumables in the marketplace. We introduced them as an option for an evolving player base and did not see them as pay to win since they don't offer power directly. After considering your feedback, we have decided that by the end of today, we will remove Heroes, Catalysts, and Fragment Extractors for purchase. They will continue to be earnable rewards, and those already owned are still usable. We hope that this can be the first step in rebuilding your confidence in us as a team. It continues to be our goal to make the very best game possible. Thank you for being part of the Marvel's Avengers community. So, what are your thoughts on that response, Kyle?
Well, I think that's the response they should have made pretty much immediately after the community was in outrage, instead of first blaming the community for being toxic, which honestly, most of them weren't being toxic. It was just like a few select people. This is what they needed to say, and this is the action they needed to take, because it seems like it was a simple thing to do, to add and then to remove. And like if they didn't see it and in the way that like a lot of people are seeing it, then that's on them. But like I'm happy with this response. So, what about you? What do you think?
I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
A lot of people I've noticed on Reddit and other sites are still kind of upset, and they say, well, they shouldn't have needed to make a statement like this in the first place because they shouldn't have introduced the paid consumables to begin with. But the way I see it, it's in the past now. They can't go and undo that decision. So the best thing they can do is move forward and learn from it. And this response shows that they're learning from it. I mean, some
Yeah.
people have been picky with the wording in this, like how they're apologizing for not responding sooner rather than apologizing for introducing the paid consumables.
Hmm.
And again, there's always going to be debate whether that's pay to win or not. I think pay to win is a lot more nuanced of a term than a lot of people are making it out to be. A lot of people say, if a game's not PvP, it can't be pay to win. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And the example I've been giving people is you look at the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. Those games are a lot of the core gameplay is about crafting ammo and healing items so that you can survive. And you can buy DLC packs that give you weapons that have unlimited ammo and
Mm.
tokens that give you a passive healing regeneration ability that effectively makes it 100 times easier to progress through the game.
Yeah.
And so, in my view, something like that could be considered pay to win because you are paying to make the game easier. Now, that said, I think it's kind of a sliding scale thing where you've got less egregious examples of pay to win on one end and the worst offenders on the other end. Worst offenders, I'm thinking of things like the Ultimate Team or My Team modes in sports games
Yeah.
where you're paying for card packs and assembling a team of super players to go and stomp on the competition. Or, of course, there was the whole Battlefront 2 paid loot box with character upgrades in them rather than just
Uh,
cosmetics. But then there are other things where you're paying for gameplay advantages that maybe it's not the most offensive thing in the world, but when you promise a community that something's going to be cosmetic only, you should probably
yeah.
stick to it.
Hmm. No, I totally agree. And yeah, I agree that this is a step in the right direction, and I think it's also one of those things where it happened, it's done now. Like, let's move on and not really nitpick about this, because I feel like people are gonna find something to complain about regardless. And in a way, it's warranted. But when you've made this fan base so uneasy and so kind of expecting of just the worst, then yeah, you're going to get people that are going to just pick apart everything you have to say because they've been angry for most of the time playing this game. But we got what we wanted here. We got the response that we wanted and the reaction that, we needed with them removing this. And now they're taking more steps in the right direction. And so I think as a community, we should just stop nitpicking and just embrace the positive changes.
And that's not to say that embracing the positive changes means ignoring everything else that's wrong with the game. It's not like we're
No.
giving them a free pass. Obviously, there's a lot of things with the game that still need to be improved. There is still a lack of in-game content. There are bugs that have persisted from day one, like enemies falling through walls, or gear perks not activating when they should, or sound glitches, visual glitches, things like that, that obviously they still need to be fixed. And,
Yeah.
it's not like they're going to get off the hook. But I also think we need to give credit where credit is due. And this response is an example of taking community feedback and learning from it. And
Yeah.
if you've been on the Avengers subreddit, and I know I'm kind of focusing a little narrowly on Reddit here because I feel like that's one of the places where the community is more actively involved rather than something like Twitter.
Yeah.
And so,
I
if
totally
you've been
agree.
active on it, you'll see that the developers themselves, in the last 3 weeks since the paid consumables issue, have been a lot more active within that community,
Hmm.
sharing information about upcoming content, things like the gear rework, cosmetic rework, and so it's been nice to see. There's a lot more of a positive energy within the community. Everyone is communicating back and forth. This is the kind of healthy dialogue they said they wanted to foster. And
Yeah.
so, as opposed to going silent for 3 weeks, this is, I think, what needs to be the standard going forward.
100%. Like, this is the way that you make a positive community, is having these two-way communications where you make sure that what is happening is clear, and that you're transparent about things not working out, like bugs, cosmetic issues, or in this case, this total mess of the consumable purchasable items. They need to make sure those are communicated, and this feels almost like a higher up switch, where I feel like a lot of this dev team and a lot of this community team has probably been hammering on the higher ups to be like, we need to be able to tell people what's happening. Like, can we communicate this? The fandom is upset. We're losing players. Can we please just say something? And finally, they've said something and made this decision, because that's just how it works in a corporation like this. Like, it's not all on the people that you're directly communicating with, and in fact, they're probably getting the worst of it, because they're the ones that are actually trying to convey a message. And it's rough. I kind of feel bad for those guys sometimes, like the people that are in the subreddit and replying on Twitter and that sort of thing, because they definitely will get the blunt force of the community's outrage sometimes, and it's not always their fault. They're just kind of the messenger, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next thing I sort of wanted to move into was the recent financial report put out by Square Enix for the 2021 year, where Square Enix president said that essentially Avengers was a disappointing outcome for
Yeah.
what their expectations were, and they noted the challenges with approaching games as a service type game, and it seemed to be that they were indicating that Crystal Dynamics wasn't a good fit for tackling the challenges that come with developing a games as a service title. So I wanted to get
Yeah.
your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's kind of a backhanded comment in a way. Like, they basically said it in so many words, because their exact wording was, games as a service model highlighted issues that we are likely to face in future game development efforts, such as the need to select game designs that mesh with the unique attributes and tastes of our studios and development teams. So yeah, basically saying that this was the wrong choice of a game for Crystal Dynamics. And the game's action is fun, and I haven't played that many Crystal Dynamics games before, so you might be able to speak on that. But I think that sort of influence is shown here. However, the games as a service model, they didn't really have any experience with, and so maybe Square Enix is looking at this now as saying, if we're going to do another games as a service type game, we need a team that has a games as a service type game under their belt, or that's had a positive impact, or that's been successful to push that forward. And yeah, I can see where they're disappointed, but also kind of rude.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I have always said that I don't think this was necessarily the best fit. I felt like Crystal Dynamics wasn't prepared to tackle a games as a service type game. But at the same time, I feel like placing the blame on that model not fitting with them as a developer isn't totally fair, because I think it's more that a
Sure.
live service game model doesn't really fit with the IP they picked in this case. When you're
Hmm.
doing a cooperative hero brawler game, it leaves so little opportunity for new and rewarding gameplay. Like, you
Yeah.
look at battle royales, those can be live service games because every match is going to be different. We've said this before. It's going to be a different outcome every time. When it's just co-op and effectively what would otherwise be a single player game, doing a live service type of game, I don't think is ever going to work. I mean, you look at games like Destiny and Destiny 2, they have sort of managed to pull it off, but those also have competitive multiplayer elements to them with their
Yeah.
Crucible multiplayer matches. You look at something like Anthem, and it went down the drain basically off of launch. It was the same thing. It was a campaign story focused game with co-op multiplayer that they
Yeah.
tried to make into a live service game, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, I think that the type of game they chose with this IP, I feel there's probably a games as a service game in the IP somewhere. I don't have the creativity to think about it right now, but I don't think that this co-op way of going about it was necessarily the best choice. Because like these characters are iconic, you know? They're huge characters, especially right now in the last 10 years. They've blown up astronomically. And so you can't really make this character your own per se, like you can in a game like, I don't know, like Fortnite. Like obviously they have skins that you can put on, but like you can customize your character and your guns and your loadouts to an extent that like makes you feel like you have choice, and are able to create your character and how they look and how they you want them to look. Whereas in here, like you're playing as Captain America. Captain America, you know, you can't really, you know, change him around to make him somebody else because then he's not Captain America. And so that doesn't really fit for the games as a service model in a co-op way like this. And so I agree that this maybe was the best choice of game type for this IP. And yeah, I think Crystal Dynamics is probably getting a bit of the blame, even then when they were probably told to make this a games as a service.
Mhm. Yeah, obviously a publisher is going to want to squeeze out as much money from any single game that they've invested in as they can in this day and age, especially looking at the success of other live service games. I think if I were going to do a live service Avengers or Marvel game, it would have to be like a competitive multiplayer game. Imagine
Yeah.
something like an Overwatch style game where it's effectively a PvP hero brawler where each character has their unique set of abilities based on their powers and you're competing, heroes versus villains.
Yeah.
I feel like
And there's
that's something
lore-based
that would
reasons
be.
you can do it too. Because you could say
Mhm.
like Civil War, or you could do Battle World, like Secret Wars. Like you could make it make sense in quote, you know, continuity. And yeah, that could totally work. Obviously, the combat systems would be interesting because Overwatch is mostly, you know, shooter-based combat, and a lot of the characters that you have in like Marvel's games or Marvel comics are brawlers or hand-to-hand combat fighters. And so like there would be some feeling out to do there, but yeah, that could totally work.
All right, well, moving on from that, I also wanted to talk, speaking of the increase in communication that we've seen in the last couple weeks, of some of the new things they've outlined that they're doing with the upcoming updates this month. Obviously, we got the news that Spider-Man is coming November 30th for PlayStation users alongside cosmetic rework, including their new shipments thing, which I wanted to get your thoughts on that and the gear rework.
Yeah, I think I'm more excited about the gear rework. Obviously, I'm excited about Spider-Man, but they're the way that they're reworking the resources for that too, in that nanites, plasma, catalysts, nanotubes, and Uru are all gone from the game. I think that is a great choice. I think that completely simplifies your resource pool, and it makes it so much easier to and clearer to upgrade your gear, or how to upgrade your gear, or what you even need to upgrade your gear. And I don't know why they had to have so many different resources in this game on launch. It just made no sense to me, other than to overcomplicate things. And so this is one of my favorite changes. They've really simplified the resource mechanic.
Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
absolutely on the same page with the resources. I know in our last podcast video, that was one of the things I said was confusing about this game at launch is you have 5 different resource types that effectively do the exact same thing, and so there's no point
yeah.
to having those different resources. So if you can
Well, and
simplify
on
it down
top
to
of
one.
that, yeah, on top of that, you had fragments, resource modules, credits, and units all mixed in on top of the other 5 resources. It just was like, it's absurd. Like, how did they even come to that conclusion that they wanted that many different resources? I will never understand. But yes, I approve of this change.
And another big change they're adding is the ability of all characters to use all of the different elemental gear perks. Like Iron Man couldn't use shock damage before, and
Weird.
it's
I didn't even
something
know
that
that.
just doesn't seem to have made sense from the beginning, much like having multiple resources.
Yeah, that's very strange. I actually didn't even notice that before you mentioned it just then, and I've played so much of this game, so
I hadn't really
yeah,
noticed it either because I just assumed everyone was able to use everything.
yeah, that
To me,
never
that would have
crossed my
made
mind.
sense, but
Yeah,
um, apparently that's one of the big new changes that's coming up. So, yeah,
cool.
that's news to me.
Yeah,
Then, of course, the other big thing, obviously, is the cosmetic rework, and so they've said that they want to have more of a focus on player agency, and so they said that there will be more opportunities for earnable cosmetics. They haven't really outlined what that'll look like, but they also have shipments, so I'm just going to see if I can pull that up here so we can describe a little better what that's supposed to be.
yeah. I
So,
actually have it here if you would like me to read.
oh yeah,
So
please.
here's what it's got. This was in their Reddit post. We've heard your requests for a path to earn coveted cosmetics, resources, and other items via gameplay, as well as a place to use your plentiful units. Enter the shipments feature. Each shipment costs 500 units, the currency earned while playing the game, and pulls from a collection of possible items, but you can see what is in the current shipment before you buy it with units. There's a small chance of the shipment containing a premium outfit unavailable via any other means of acquisition. But luck isn't required to get the outfit. You'll automatically receive it after claiming 100 shipments. We'll talk more about the shipments in the upcoming weeks. So it basically sounds like a loot box that you can see what's in it before you buy it.
Okay, so yeah, that kind of reminds me of the Apex packs and Apex Legends, where at a certain point, once you've purchased so many, you're guaranteed heirloom shards. You can unlock an heirloom. So
Yeah.
it essentially sounds like the same idea as that. So
Hmm.
that I could see being a positive step in the right direction. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see what the skins look like, because as much as
Yeah.
they say premium skins, one of the big problems this game has had is too many recolors of skins that
Yep.
already exist in the game. And so I'm kind of hoping that it isn't that, but it is good to see that there are more opportunities beyond spending money, because I
Hmm.
noticed with all the new players coming in off of Xbox Game Pass, one of the big frustrations has been that they go to the cosmetic vendor in the
In the
the
helicarriers?
bases, yeah,
Yeah.
and like in the helicarrier, and they notice that they have no cosmetics for sale, and so new players are like, okay, well, what the hell's going on? How am
Hmm.
I supposed to, what's this vendor for?
Yeah. And it's kind of strange because they say this is earnable cosmetics, and yet it's kind of like there's kind of a half step to earn this cosmetic because you first have to earn the units before you can purchase this like shipment. And where I thought earnable cosmetics would go was, if you finish this specific mission chain, you would get this cosmetic as well as these resources and whatnot. And that to me is earnable cosmetics. This to me is just more opportunities to use units in a way. And
Hmm.
so it's a half step to earning, but yeah, it's a good step, I guess.
Yeah. And again, it's nice to see that they're communicating all of this, because they've
Hmm.
said months ago that there was a cosmetic rework coming, and at that time they had removed the fabrication machine patterns and the refresh on the
Right.
helicarrier cosmetic vendor, and so they kind of left everyone in limbo as far as I was concerned, because there was no way to get cosmetics in game other than the challenge cards,
Yeah.
which, other than your starting 6 heroes, you couldn't get without paying for them. And
Yep.
so it's good to see that they are actually detailing that now. And again, it's a shame that it had to come off the back of such bitter criticism, but
Yeah.
it's also nice to see that now they're starting to take accountability and actually address the issues that people have with the game.
Yeah. Well, another thing they addressed is we kind of talked about this just before we started recording, but they've changed permanently the prices of cosmetics that you could buy with credits. And so they've made it, they had them on discount for a while, but now legendary outfits are 900, epic is 700, and rare are 500, which is, it used to be what, 1400 1,000 and then I don't know 900 or something. It's
Yeah,
something stupid. So like that's a good step too. And if that is the regular price now, maybe we'll get some more discounts, which would make a legendary outfit like 450, and that is incredibly reasonable to me.
yeah,
That sounds like something I would actually buy.
yeah. See, I kind of found that misleading because I thought the price reduction was already permanent because they'd been on sale since Black Panther released.
Yeah.
But it is good to see that
Yeah.
they've actually decided to address the
Confirmed.
pricing model for skins because that was a
Hmm.
big thing we've talked about the last two episodes of this we've done is that the
Yeah.
pricing model for skins is just wrong. And so again, it's a step in the right direction. I'm not convinced that that's enough. I would like to see the prices go down a little more
Hmm.
before I'm more willing to just open my wallet for them. But I appreciate the fact that instead of paid consumables, they're now turning to skins and saying, okay, what can we do here to get people buying these
Yeah.
more?
Well, and there is a pessimistic way to look at that, in that they were like, well, shit, now we don't have the easy cash grab of 250 credits for a consumable item. Oh shit, people are leaving the game and they're not buying expensive cosmetics anymore. We need to lower these prices so that people will actually come back and buy it. But even if you look at it that way, it's still a change that's kind of in the right direction, even if it is for, greedy reasons.
Yeah. All right, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is the Claw Raid. We haven't really gotten much info on it other than that it's coming November 30th alongside Spider-Man, and that Claw will be the boss. But what do you think? Is that something you're going to hop back into the game for?
um, I'm gonna hop in the game for Spider-Man, and because the Claw Raid will also be there at the same time, I'll probably do that. Or like, I mean, obviously, I think the raids are incredibly high powered, right? So you have to level up your character first. Maybe in the process of leveling up Spider-Man, I might do it. But like raids to me, I don't know. I never really was that enamored about them. Maybe that's just me, but yeah. What about you?
I'll have to see. I'm excited to jump in and play Spider-Man. I want to try the raid, but I'm just hoping, it's not like World of Warcraft raids where, it's a 4-hour commitment to play through this thing because I don't have
I
that
couldn't
kind
do
of time
that.
on my hands.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
want to sit down for 4 hours straight just to get to one boss. So,
Yeah.
we'll have to see how long that ends up being and also how Spider-Man plays because that's going to be a big factor. Whether I want to actually continue to play the game or not is
Yeah.
how well he plays.
I'm
And
curious as to what they're going to show after this, though, because their current roadmap has up to November 30th, and they got this big content dump, which is good. They haven't shown us anything of Spider-Man concrete-wise, which we're getting next week, so that'll be nice to see. But after that, we have no idea what's coming next, and
yeah,
so I have no
and that
idea.
is concerning for the PC and Xbox player base too because
Yeah.
they're starved for an additional character that much longer. And obviously, there's been a lot of rumors lately swirling around She-Hulk and I think War Machine coming to the game. And so hopefully, there's some confirmation of that, or at least a reveal of a new character relatively soon. Because
Yeah.
the way it's looking right now, they're at least taking things in a positive direction with the increase of communication. But now they need to build on that and start adding new gameplay elements, less repetitive missions, and new characters if they want to keep people invested. They've sort of started forming the foundation of rebuilding the goodwill they lost over the last few months, but they need to keep up the momentum.
Hmm. I'm curious as what you might think of this. Do you like, because Spider-Man doesn't seem to come with a lot of story content other than his like individual mission chain.
Mm,
Is that something that you're like okay with having other characters potentially be introduced and not have this big like massive expansion like War for Wakanda? Because I wouldn't actually mind if we got characters at a higher frequency if some of them were just the character and then a small mission chain, and instead of like a big story dump. But I'm curious as to what your thoughts on that are.
Now that you bring that up, I wouldn't mind that at all. Especially for characters who I'm not as invested in as a core Avengers character, someone like Winter
Yeah.
Soldier, who there have been rumors around, or
Hmm.
Spider-Man, or even, any Fantastic Four characters they might want to bring in. I would love to see characters like that added to the game without a huge mission change, just so that they can add some variety to the gameplay. Now, obviously, I don't know what the development cycle is like on the characters. I'm assuming it takes a few months because, I know Spider-Man's been in development for a while, but um, if they could bring out the characters without a huge content drop at a higher rate, that would
Yeah.
definitely keep me more interested in the game long term, for sure.
And I think they could be strategic about it too, because like in my opinion, I don't know what She-Hulk is going to bring to the narrative that they have going on right now, other than she's an Avenger that they should recruit for this upcoming Kree invasion, or if that's even still going to happen. But then someone like Carol, like Captain Marvel, that would be a big story expansion because she would actually bring a lot to the ongoing story of Marvel's Avengers in their lore. And so I wouldn't mind if somebody like She-Hulk or War Machine came out without big story expansions, and then we get a bigger story dump with somebody like Captain Marvel. I would be very happy with that.
Yeah, I would too. I think that's a great idea, and maybe that's something to try and push for. Maybe they would actually
Yeah.
consider it now.
Hmm.
All right, before we go, I have one last question. What are the skins you want to see released with Spider-Man?
Oh boy. Okay, well, I mean, there's obviously the classics that you want to ask for, like the black symbiote suit. I would like the Scarlet Spider suit, and
The
I would
original
also
Scarlet
like
Spider or the newer Scarlet Spider, the black and red one?
both. Now that you mention it, both. The one with the
Okay.
hood's cool too, but I like the black and red one a lot.
Okay.
I also want the Superior Spider-Man costume, the one when he was Doc Ock had taken over Spider-Man's brain
Yep.
and like upgraded all of his shit. That costume is so cool. Obviously the MCU ones, I feel like that's a no-brainer. Um, Maybe a Miles suit, but that would feel a little bit disingenuous, maybe.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
I was thinking that too.
yeah, maybe a Future Foundation suit. That one's pretty cool. Yeah, what about you? What about you?
For me, it's definitely the symbiote suit and the original Scarlet Spider suit with the hoodie.
Yeah,
Those are the
yeah.
two I want to see more than anything.
Well, you know what's going to happen too. It's the same thing that happened with Spider-Man PS4. Everyone's going to clamor for the Raimi Spider-Man suit. And I feel like that's one that would be fun to have put in, especially if the upcoming Spider-Man movie has some cameos from past Spider-Mans.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that would be relevant, and I would be down for that.
I'm not a huge fan of the Raimi suit, but it would be nice to have that option.
Yeah,
All right, well, that's going to do it for us today. Kyle, thank you once again for coming on.
always a pleasure. Nick, thanks for having me.
And for everyone who's watching, make sure if you haven't already, if you're a fan of movies, go check out Kyle's Snubs and Dubs podcast. It's a great listen, and I promise you will not be disappointed. If you are,
Hell yeah.
you can hold me personally accountable for it.
We're halfway through season one now, as of when this will come out, probably, and it is just getting better every episode. And so I would really appreciate it if you guys checked it out.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the L2 Games Podcast. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.